This video discusses some of the tips and techniques for shooting to edit. When shooting a video, there are certain principles and techniques that filmmakers apply to make things easier when editing, and to create a final cut that appears as seamless as possible. I'm going to run through some of these tips, tricks, and principles quickly, so you may need to pause or replay this video to catch them all. In fictional films and videos, there are two basic types of scenes: an action sequence and a dialogue scene. Firstly, an action sequence is a scene that features a series of movements or actions with minimal focus on dialogue. Here, the actors are moving and the camera keeps up with the action to let the audience know what's going on. An action sequence can range from a choreographed dance routine to a fight scene to something simple like making a sandwich, or in this example, a man walking down a cluttered hallway. When filming an action sequence, consider providing a range of shots to highlight details to the audience. A single take scene where the camera doesn't cut away from anything is done occasionally, but often with a particular purpose in mind. However, usually a single take scene just looks lazy and it doesn't engage the audience as much as a multi-shot sequence does. When filming from multiple angles, be sure to cover the exact same action so that you can place one clip over another. This is known as overlap. Now that you have multiple shots from multiple angles, try to get a variety of takes from each one so that you have options when you go to edit. Your best take from one angle might not work when overlapping with another, so having choice can make your life easier when you go to edit. When you have all these different shots of the same action, it can be hard to determine the best place to cut from one to another. As a fundamental rule applied by editors everywhere, cut at the moment of a distinct action. In this case, cutting when the man steps on the squeaky toy or touches the door handle offers a much more visually smooth edit than cutting slightly before or after. It's also easier for your audience to follow the action this way, as our brains connect the two shots through the consistent action. Other editing principles include cutting to rhythm, where edits are matched to the beat of music, or cutting to graphic composition, where two shots are matched on visual similarities. On a busy film set, simple things can slip your mind, such as an actor rolling up their sleeves between shot setups. This is known as a continuity error, as the change can draw the audience's attention away from the continuity of one shot into another. It can be devastating to discover a continuity error when editing, and although even Hollywood has made some famous bloopers of this kind, you don't want this happening to you. So make sure all your cast and crew are mindful of these things while you're filming. In learning how to shoot dialogue, let's have a look at this scene from season 2 of Riverdale, where Betty and Jughead are talking about a new clue that's come to hand about the identity of the Black Hood.
A family of 4 was murdered by someone that the press called the Riverdale Reaper.
The first shot of this scene isn't of the scene at all. It's a long shot of the building where the scene is set, Pop's Diner. This is called an establishing shot, as it establishes the location and orientates the audience to the scene, particularly as it follows from another scene set somewhere else. When filming dialogue itself, it's important to cover the scene from multiple angles. Often this means filming the exact same lines over and over again from various camera setups. Usually, a director will cover a scene from 3 or 5 setups. This scene uses 5. The first setup is a 2-shot. A 2-shot's recommended so that you can show both characters at the same time. It's usually a good shot to open a dialogue scene with, as it establishes the characters' proximity and relationship to one another, as well as easing the audience into their conversation. Next, we have a mid-shot of one of the characters when they say their lines. Then, a mirror image or reverse of that exact shot to show the other character saying their lines. This shot-reverse shot technique is one of the most common and effective ways to show dialogue, and mid-shots are a comfortable distance for an audience to see who's saying what. Of course, not all mid-shots carry the same meaning. In this scene, the choice to place the camera at a lower angle, almost hiding behind the tabletop, adds to the mood, making the audience feel almost like we are spying or eavesdropping on Betty and Jughead's intense conversation. To add further intensity to a dialogue scene, a director can shoot shot-reverse shots in close-up. This puts greater emphasis on actors' facial expressions and communicates emotion to the audience. We can use these different shot sizes to draw the audience in and out of a conversation and more effectively communicate character emotions. Here, as Betty freaks out about the Black Hood, she backs off emotionally from Jughead, and the camera reflects this by backing off from a close-up into a two-shot. One thing you'll notice about these 5 shots is that they all stay on the same side of the action. We always see Betty over Jughead's right-hand side and Jughead over Betty's left. This is called the 180-degree rule, where you imagine a line being drawn between the two characters' noses and then out through the back of their heads, and then you do not let the camera cross it. If it helps, picture your scene as appearing on a stage. A theatre audience only gets to view the conversation from one side of that stage, never backstage. And so should a film's audience. If a camera were to cross the line and shoot Betty from over Jughead's left, the effect would make it appear as though these characters are facing in the same direction and not actually talking to one another, which is confusing for an audience. There are 2 other shots in this dialogue scene. In one, we see over Betty's shoulder to read the headline of a newspaper, and in the other, we see Jughead's phone ring. These shots are called inserts, as they are inserted into the scene for a specific purpose. Another type of shot that's typical of a dialogue scene is the cutaway, which is similar to an insert, but instead of focusing on something that appears within the scene, we cut away from the dialogue to something else, like if a character looks at a wall clock or sees a car crash. Or in the case from another scene from Riverdale, Veronica cuts off her conversation with Betty when she sees Archie walk into Pop's diner. One final point about editing. Assembling an action sequence or dialogue scene together works because the audience wants to make connections between 2 shots. Just by placing one shot after another, an editor has the power to force a connection in the minds of the audience. This is known as the Kuleshov effect, and was perhaps best demonstrated by the great Hollywood director Alfred Hitchcock. In this experiment, Hitchcock took footage of himself looking off into the distance and smiling. Then, he cut that clip in half and inserted different shots in between. In one example, by cutting to a woman with a young child and then back to Hitchcock as he smiles, he looks like a nice old man. Perhaps it reminds us of our own grandfather. But if we replace the clip of the woman and the baby with one of a young girl sunbathing, suddenly the old man doesn't appear to be kind and caring anymore. Instead, his smile now suggests that he's a dirty old perv. And this is the power of editing. Your choices in shooting and cutting together your scenes can have a profound effect on your audience. Hopefully, by following the tips in this video, you'll be able to make things easier for yourself when you edit and create a more seamless film that best engages your audience. And that is a quick rundown of some of the tips around editing. This list, of course, is not exhaustive, and if you have any suggestions or questions, please feel free to comment below. In the meantime, though, thanks for watching.